I gave my unemployed stepbrother a high-paying job and free money. In return, he harassed me for months and tried to get me fired, not knowing that was his last chance to be nice. Growing up, my stepbrother was the golden child, and I liked it that way. When my parents tore up my report card because I got a mix of A's and B's and threw a party for my stepbrother, Tyler, who got all C's, I was happy for him. And even when I got wailed on for being too quiet and ungrateful at the dinner table, while Tyler got double the amount of dessert for bringing his plate to the sink, I was happy for him, because I knew that in the long run, this would only benefit me. I also knew that it would eventually cause a rift between us. Of course, I was right about both those things. I graduated high school with all honors because of how hard my inferiority complex made me study, whilst Tyler flunked out junior year. I moved out the second I hit 18 and used my own money to pay for the apartment, whilst Tyler was literally in legal debt by 17. My parents actually stopped talking to me as soon as I moved out, and I reciprocated, never coming home for holidays. The only thing I did was send $200 in cash to Tyler every 2 months, just so he wouldn't be fully reliant on our parents. Other than that, we didn't talk. All I knew about him was that he had somehow gotten a job as a supervisor at a local McDonald's. Honestly, I liked it that way. I wanted none of my family to know how I was doing. I waited all the way until I graduated college and bought a nice car, condo, and had a steady job to see them again. I thought this would finally be the thing that showed them, but instead, I got a Thanksgiving that will forever be imprinted in my mind. I showed up in an old outfit from Old Navy and a fat check and job opportunity for Tyler. My stepdad was the one who opened the door. I almost gasped when I saw how much older he looked. Meanwhile, my mom's face was pumped with Botox. To my surprise, they actually welcomed me in, but I never let my guard down. And it wasn't until we all, stepbrother, stepdad, and mom, sat down in the living room that their mask of kindness fell apart. We started off with updating each other, and I found out Tyler had gotten fired from McDonald's after just a year and has been unemployed ever since. I saw him saying this as my chance to tell him about the job. Well, I started. I work at a bank and we're currently looking for— Oh, look at me! I get paid for using a calculator and wearing a suit, he interrupted. I stared at him blankly, while my parents were laughing their butts off. It had been almost 8 years since I last saw him. Surely he wasn't still a man-child, right? I brushed it off as some dumb joke and tried to continue, but every time I did, he'd start making funny faces or call me a desk monkey under his breath. I just sighed and, for the first time, I saw Tyler for what he was, a deadbeat loser. So I gave up on the job offer and instead just handed him the $15,000 check from my pocket. But instead of thanking me, or even just nodding in my direction, he went too far. Bet your dead daddy's real proud you turned out to be a money parasite, huh? My face dropped. I was instantly filled with so much anger that my neck and face started burning up. I stood up to walk towards him, with my fists clenched by my side. And in response, he stood up too, except instead of facing me, it was to run away and lock himself in the bathroom. My parents practically glued themselves to the couch, not wanting to be involved. I simply walked over to Tyler and slowly began to unlock the door from the outside, taunting him. Hey Tyler, did you know I was going to offer you a job that had a starting pay of $60,000 today? Silence. But hey, if you'd rather beat your hot dog all day while watching girls who will never want you, all from the childhood bedroom that you never moved out of, then more power to you. Silence. I didn't even bother opening the door after that. I just left. A small part of me was angry that I let him keep the check, but I was mostly still happy that I was able to help him out. But turns out Tyler didn't exactly want the check. He didn't want the job either. Instead, he wanted to ruin my life. I didn't realize it yet, but my comments had stung Tyler. So much so, he decided to use them to ruin everything I had ever worked for. About a week later, I started getting weird calls at work. Someone would ask for me by name, then hang up when I answered. Then my email inbox got flooded with subscription confirmations. Somehow someone had signed me up for every porn site newsletter possible. My work email, not my personal one. I changed my passwords and moved on, thinking it was just a one-time thing. Then my neighbors started giving me strange looks in the hallway. Turned out someone had put up flyers around my condo building claiming I was running an illegal business from my apartment. The flyers had my full name and unit number. I knew immediately it was Tyler, but how did he even know where I lived? The check I gave him had my bank's address, not my home address. It took a couple days of paranoid thinking before I remembered. My mom had asked for my address last year to send a Christmas card. She never sent anything, but obviously she'd given the info to Tyler. Things escalated quickly from there. I started getting packages I never ordered, expensive stuff that would show up COD, meaning I had to pay for them or refuse delivery. My car got keyed in my building's parking garage. Someone called in a noise complaint to my condo association 3 nights in a row. These were all annoying but manageable. What pushed me over the edge was when I got a call from my boss asking if everything was okay. Apparently, someone claiming to be my stepbrother had called HR to say I was having a mental health crisis and might need to be checked on. That could have seriously damaged my reputation at work if my boss hadn't known me better. I was done playing defense. Time to find out exactly what Tyler was up to and put an end to it. I called my mom for the first time in years and casually asked how Tyler was doing. She launched into a 20-minute monologue about how he was between opportunities but had big plans. The important part? He was still living at home in his childhood bedroom, just like I'd guessed. I needed to know just how far he was willing to go, and more importantly, I needed to make sure he understood that messing with me would backfire spectacularly. The days of me being the quiet, accommodating stepsister were over. If Tyler wanted a war, He had no idea what he was in for. I figured if Tyler wanted to mess with my life, I needed to be smart about how I handled it. Just confronting him would only make things worse. The jerk probably expected me to come barging into my mom's house screaming at him, which would only play into their "she's unstable" narrative. No, I had to be more strategic. First thing I did was lock down my digital life, changed all my passwords, set up two-factor authentication, and created a Google alert for my name. I called my bank, credit card companies, and even the 3 credit bureaus to put fraud alerts on everything. Last thing I needed was Tyler trying to open accounts in my name. Then I dealt with the physical security. I spoke to my building manager about the situation, keeping it vague, just said I had a troubled family member who might cause problems. He agreed to alert security and make sure no packages were accepted without my direct approval. I also bought a cheap camera for my front door, just a basic Ring doorbell, nothing fancy. During all this, I was trying to figure out my next move. I wasn't about to just sit back and take Tyler's crap, but I also didn't want to sink to his level. I decided to make a quick trip to my hometown that weekend, not to confront Tyler, but to gather intel. I drove down Saturday morning and parked a few blocks from my parents' house. Their neighborhood hadn't changed much. Same old houses, same cracked sidewalks. I sat in my car wondering what the hell I was doing when I spotted Tyler walking out the front door. He was wearing the same stained sweatpants from Thanksgiving, but had added a grimy hoodie, real fashion icon. I slumped down in my seat as he walked past, not even glancing my way. He headed toward the convenience store at the corner. I decided to follow him, not too close, just enough to see what he was up to. He bought cigarettes and a case of cheap beer, then headed back toward the house. But he didn't go inside. Instead, he walked around to the side yard where there was this old shed. My parents never used that shed for anything except storing the lawnmower. But Tyler unlocked it and went inside, staying for about 20 minutes before coming out again and heading back to the house. Interesting. I waited until both my mom's and Tom's cars were gone the next day before I made my move. Sunday morning, they always went to the diner for breakfast, a tradition since I was a kid. I figured Tyler would either be asleep or glued to his video games. The shed was what I wanted to check out. The lock was cheap and easy to pick. Thank you, YouTube tutorials. Inside was, well, not what I expected. Tyler had set up a little office of sorts. There was a desk with an old laptop, a printer, and stacks of paper. On the wall were pictures of me, photos from my social media before I locked everything down, printouts of my work profile, even a map with my condo circled in red. It was like something out of a bad thriller movie. What really caught my attention was a notebook labeled Operation Payback. Real original Tyler. I flipped through it and found a detailed list of all the things he'd already done to mess with me, plus a bunch more he was planning. Some were childish, ordering pizzas to my place at 3 a.m. Others were more concerning. He had written down the names of several of my coworkers and notes about contacting them. I took photos of everything with my phone. This wasn't just annoying sibling rivalry. This was straight up harassment. I carefully put everything back exactly as I found it and slipped out, making sure to lock the shed behind me. On the drive home, I called my friend Barbara, who works in IT security. She's always been my go-to person for tech advice. I explained the situation without getting too deep into the family drama. This guy sounds like a total loser, was her assessment. But even losers can cause damage. You need to protect yourself. Barbara came over that evening and helped me set up better security on all my devices. She also had some ideas about how to track the source of any further digital harassment. We ordered takeout and spent the whole evening getting everything locked down. You know, Barbara said between bites of pad thai, you could just report him to the police for harassment. I shook my head. Not yet. I want to see what he does next. Playing with fire much? Barbara raised an eyebrow. Maybe I was, but something in me wanted to handle this myself. Plus, involving the police meant potentially having to deal with my parents, and I wasn't ready for that headache. The next couple of weeks were quiet, maybe too quiet. I checked my camera footage daily, but there was no sign of Tyler. No weird calls, no packages, nothing. I almost started to think he'd given up. Then I got a call from an unknown number while at work. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello, is this Alexandra? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who's this? This is Karen from Credit Secure. We've detected some unusual activity on your accounts. It appears someone tried to open 3 credit cards in your name yesterday. My stomach dropped. I spent my lunch break dealing with the attempted identity theft. Thankfully, the fraud alerts I'd set up had prevented any actual damage, but it was clear Tyler was escalating. This wasn't just annoying anymore, it was potentially criminal. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Having credit problems? Maybe you should be more careful who you piss off. I didn't respond, just saved the number as evidence. But now I was genuinely angry. This had gone too far. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting to Tyler and his stupid revenge schemes. During my afternoon break, I decided to check my personal email, and there it was. An email from my mom with the subject line, "We need to talk about Tyler." I opened it with sweaty fingers. It was brief. Alexandra, I don't know what's going on between you and your stepbrother, but he's been acting strange since your visit. Could you please call me? Mom. At least she used stepbrother this time. Some things do change. I didn't call her, but I did formulate a plan. If Tyler wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too, but smarter. First step, I called the McDonald's where he used to work and asked to speak to the manager. I introduced myself as a potential employer doing a reference check on Tyler. The manager, a guy named Richard, laughed. Reference? For Tyler? Lady, the only reference I'd give that guy is to stay far away. He was the worst employee I've ever had. Showed up late, left early, stole from the register, harassed female co-workers. We didn't fire him. He got arrested in the parking lot for selling weed. We just never put him back on the schedule after that. Interesting. Very different from the manager was jealous story my mom had told. I thanked Richard and hung up, then moved to step 2. I called Tyler's phone from a burner number I'd set up. Yo, he answered. I disguised my voice slightly. Hey, is this Tyler? I heard you might be able to hook me up. I was taking a chance here, but Richard's comment about selling weed made me suspect Tyler might still be dealing. Who's this? He sounded suspicious but interested. Name's Quinn. Jason from the auto shop gave me your number. Said you could help me out with some party supplies. There was a pause. Yeah, I can help you out. What are you looking for? We arranged to meet at the convenience store near my parents' house that weekend. I hung up feeling a mix of triumph and nervousness. I had no intention of actually buying drugs from my loser stepbrother. I just wanted confirmation of what he was up to. The rest of the week passed without incident. I took Friday off work and drove down to my hometown, checking into a cheap motel under a fake name. Paranoid? Maybe, but better safe than sorry. Saturday morning, I parked across from the convenience store and waited. Right on time, Tyler showed up, looking around nervously. I had a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses on, sitting in my car with the window cracked so I could hear. I watched as he paced around for about 10 minutes before pulling out his phone. A minute later, my burner phone rang. I didn't answer. He tried 2 more times, then texted, "Where you at?" I didn't respond. He waited another 15 minutes, getting visibly agitated, before finally giving up and walking back toward my parents' house. But he didn't go inside. He headed for the shed again. I gave him some time, then grabbed my phone and followed. This time, I didn't go inside the shed. I just stood near the window, phone recording, as Tyler ranted to himself. Stupid no-show, wasting my time, could have been a setup, need to focus on the plan anyway. I heard him shuffling papers around. Then, Alex won't know what hit her. By the time I'm done, she'll wish she never came back. That's when I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. The unmistakable click of a gun being handled. I nearly dropped my phone, but managed to keep recording. Should have seen her face when I mentioned Dad. Tyler laughed to himself. Always was a sensitive little bitch. I'd heard enough. I quietly backed away and returned to my car, heart pounding. The recording wasn't crystal clear, but it was enough to make me seriously concerned. Was Tyler actually dangerous, or just talking big to him, which they could do since nothing was stolen, and the damage was minimal? They advised me to change my locks and file for a restraining order. By the time I got home, Barbara had already called a locksmith who was just finishing up. My apartment reeked of fish, despite Barbara's efforts to clean up. I was exhausted, angry, and scared, but mostly, I was done with being Tyler's punching bag. I need to end this, I told Barbara, as we sat on my balcony to escape the smell. Not just stop him, but make sure he can never pull this kind of crap again. What are you thinking? Barbara looked concerned. Something legal, I assured her, but effective. The next day was Sunday. I knew my parents would be at their usual diner breakfast, and Tyler would likely be sleeping in. Perfect timing for me to make some calls. First, I called a friend who worked at the DMV. I wasn't looking for anything illegal, just confirmation of some suspicions. Sure enough, Tyler's driver's license had been suspended 6 months ago for unpaid tickets and driving without insurance. Yet I'd seen him driving my mom's car just yesterday. Next, I called a college buddy who'd become a paralegal. She helped me understand exactly what constituted harassment and identity theft in our state, and what evidence I'd need for a restraining order. I had plenty. Then I called my boss. I explained the situation briefly and asked for Monday off to handle some family issues. He was understanding. Finally, I called my mom. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding surprised to hear from me. Alexandra, is everything okay? Not really, Mom. We need to talk about Tyler. In person. Can I come over tomorrow morning? There was a long pause. I suppose that would be fine. Tom will be at work, but good. I'd rather talk to you alone first anyway. I'll be there at 10. I spent the rest of Sunday preparing. I organized all my evidence. The photos of Tyler's Operation Payback shed, the recordings, the credit fraud attempts, everything. I backed it all up to the cloud and made physical copies. If Tyler had taught me anything, it was to be thorough. Monday morning, I dressed carefully in a simple blouse and slacks, professional but not intimidating. I didn't want my mom to feel like I was coming in to attack her, even though part of me blamed her for enabling Tyler all these years. When I arrived, my mom looked nervous. She'd clearly made an effort. Her hair was done, and she was wearing a nicer outfit than her usual loungewear. The house was spotless too. It reminded me of how she used to frantically clean before my stepdad got home from work. Is Tyler here? I asked as I stepped inside. She shook her head. He went out early, said he had some business to take care of. Great. That could mean anything from selling drugs to vandalizing my car again. I'd parked a block away just in case. We sat in the living room, awkwardly perched on opposite ends of the couch. My mom kept fiddling with her wedding ring, a nervous habit she'd had for as long as I could remember. Mom, I need to show you something, I said, pulling out my folder of evidence. Tyler has been harassing me since Thanksgiving. It started with pranks, but has escalated to identity theft and breaking into my home. My mom's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, defensiveness, and finally, a kind of resigned acknowledgement. He's been troubled, she said weakly. Ever since you came back, he feels like you're showing off, making him look bad. Mom, I gave him $15,000 and offered him a job. How is that making him look bad? She didn't have an answer for that. I showed her everything. The photos of Tyler's shed, screenshots of the credit card fraud attempts, the building security footage of him entering my condo. With each piece of evidence, she seemed to shrink a little more into the couch. I don't know what you expect me to do, she finally said in a small voice. I expect you to stop enabling him. He's not a child anymore, Mom. He's an adult making choices to hurt people, to hurt me, and I've had enough. I pulled out the last document, a restraining order application I'd filled out that morning. I'm filing this today. Tyler will be legally barred from contacting me or coming near my home or workplace. If he violates it, he'll be arrested. My mom started to cry. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears sliding down her face. He's my son, and I'm your daughter, I replied, surprised by how steady my voice was. But you've never protected me from him, so now I'm protecting myself. The front door slammed, making us both jump. Tyler stormed into the living room, face red with anger. What the hell are you doing here? He demanded, glaring at me. I stood up, keeping the coffee table between us. I'm talking to Mom about your little hobby of harassing me. Tyler looked at the papers spread across the table, then at our mom's tear-streaked face. Something seemed to snap in him. You think you can just come in here and turn her against me? After abandoning the family for years? You don't even know what we've been through. Tyler, calm down, my mom said, but her voice was so weak it was barely audible. No, I'm sick of her thinking she's better than everyone, coming back with her fancy job and her condo, looking down on us. I kept my voice level. I never looked down on you, Tyler. I tried to help you. Help me? He laughed bitterly. You left me here with them. He gestured toward our mom. Do you know what it's been like being the only one they could focus on? The only one they could criticize and control? You escaped, and I got double the pressure. That wasn't what I expected him to say. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. That doesn't justify what you've done, I said firmly. The harassment, the identity theft, breaking into my home. Tyler's face changed, a smirk replacing the anger. Prove it was me. I pointed to the evidence on the table. Already did. The smirk faltered. He looked down at the papers, then back at me. So what? You gonna call the cops on me now? If I have to. He took a step toward me, and I instinctively backed up. That's when I noticed the bulge in his jacket pocket. Was that the gun I'd heard him handling? My mom saw it too. Tyler, what's in your pocket? He ignored her, keeping his eyes on me. You always think you're so smart, don't you? Little Miss Perfect, with her perfect life. My life isn't perfect, Tyler. I just worked for what I have instead of trying to tear down others. Worked for it? He shouted, making both me and my mom flinch. You had every advantage. Dad always liked you better. Teachers always helped you more. Even when you left, you had it easier because no one expected anything from you. I was confused. Tom never liked me better. He barely tolerated me. I had always assumed Tom disliked me. He was cold, critical, and seemed annoyed by my very presence throughout my childhood. It never occurred to me that his attitude toward me might have changed after I left. Not Tom, Tyler spat. My dad, your stepdad. You weren't the one who had to live up to impossible standards. You weren't the one who got compared to his brilliant stepdaughter every single day after you left. Well, that was a plot twist I hadn't seen coming. I glanced at my mom, who was looking anywhere but at us. Is that true? I asked her. She sighed deeply. Tom changed after you left. He was proud of how independent you were. Started wondering why Tyler couldn't be more like that. I almost laughed at the irony. All those years I thought Tyler was the golden child, and apparently he'd been living in my shadow after I left, but that still didn't excuse his behavior. Tyler, I said carefully, noticing his hand drifting toward his pocket again. Whatever happened in the past, it doesn't justify what you're doing now. This needs to stop. Or what? He challenged. Or I'll file this restraining order today, and I'll press charges for identity theft and breaking and entering. That's serious jail time, Tyler. He pulled his hand out of his pocket, but instead of a gun, he was holding my mom's car keys. Good luck proving anything. I'm out of here. Tyler, wait, my mom called, but he was already heading for the door. I remembered what my DMV friend had told me. If you drive with a suspended license, that's another charge to add to the list. He froze, hand on the doorknob. What are you talking about? Your license was suspended 6 months ago. Aisha from Westside Hospital. We have your stepbrother Tyler here in the emergency room. You're listed as his emergency contact. My heart skipped a beat. Is he okay? What happened? He's stable, but he's been in an accident. He's asking for you. I told my boss I had a family emergency and drove to the hospital, my mind racing. Was this legitimate or another one of Tyler's schemes? Only one way to find out. When I arrived at the ER, I was directed to a curtained bed where Tyler lay looking pale and drawn. His right arm was in a cast, and he had a nasty gash on his forehead. You came, he said when he saw me, sounding genuinely surprised. What happened? I asked, staying near the foot of the bed. Tried to cross the highway on foot. Wasn't paying attention. He looked away, clipped by a truck. Why were you crossing the highway? He shrugged his good shoulder, going to a friend's place. The nurse came in then, checking Tyler's vitals. The doctor wants to keep him overnight for observation because of the concussion. Do you have his insurance information? Tyler looked panicked. I told you, I don't have insurance. The nurse looked at me expectantly. I felt conflicted. Even after everything Tyler had done, seeing him injured and vulnerable stirred something in me. A sense of responsibility that I couldn't quite shake. This was still the boy I'd grown up with. The kid who'd been shaped by the same dysfunctional home I'd escaped from. I could have walked away. I kind of wanted to, but instead, I pulled out my wallet. I'll handle the paperwork, I told her. Can you give us a minute? When she left, Tyler wouldn't meet my eyes. You don't have to pay for this. I know. I can't pay you back. I know that too. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Why'd you come? He finally asked. After everything I did, I considered the question. Because despite everything, you're still family, and I wanted to make sure you were actually hurt, and not just luring me into another trap. He almost smiled at that. Fair enough. I leaned forward, making sure he was looking at me. This is it though, Tyler. My last act of goodwill. If you ever try to mess with my life again, I won't hesitate to use everything I have against you. Understand? He nodded slowly. Yeah, I get it. Good. Now I'm going to pay your hospital bill and give you one more chance to turn things around. What you do with it is up to you. As I stood to leave, he called out, Alex? I turned. What? I'm sorry. For the dad comment at Thanksgiving, that was too far. It wasn't a full apology, but it was something. I nodded acknowledgement and went to find the billing department. I couldn't know then if Tyler was truly remorseful or just saying what he thought I wanted to hear. All I knew was that I was done being a victim. Whether Tyler changed or not, I would be okay. I had built a life for myself, and no one, not Tyler, not my mom, not Tom, could take that away from me. I paid Tyler's hospital bill, left my contact information for the doctors, and walked out into the sunshine, feeling for the first time like I was completely free of my family's dysfunction. Whether this was the end of Tyler's revenge or just a temporary truce, I was ready for whatever came next. Leaving the hospital that day, I had no idea if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life or finally broken through to Tyler. Part of me was waiting for the other shoe to drop, like maybe the whole accident was an elaborate scam to get me to pay his hospital bills. But according to the doctors, his injuries were definitely real. The concussion was mild, but the broken arm would take weeks to heal properly. I tried to put Tyler out of my mind and focus on work for the next few days. I'd done what I could, paid his medical bills, given him yet another chance, and made it crystal clear there wouldn't be any more opportunities after this one. Ball was in his court now. About a week after the hospital visit, I got a notification. It was a text from my mom asking if I'd heard from Tyler. Apparently, he hadn't come home after being discharged. I told her I hadn't heard anything and suggested maybe he was staying with a friend. She didn't seem convinced, but thanked me anyway. 2 more weeks went by with no Tyler drama, no harassment, no weird packages, no credit card fraud attempts. I started to relax a little, thinking maybe the hospital scare had actually knocked some sense into him. Then my doorbell rang on a Saturday afternoon. I checked my security camera and froze. Tyler was standing outside my door, looking uncomfortable in clean jeans and a button-up shirt I'd never seen before. His arm was still in a cast, and he had dark circles under his eyes. I considered not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door, but kept the security chain on. What are you doing here? Can I come in? He asked, not meeting my eyes. I just want to talk. Last time you were here, you left rotting fish on my counter. He winced. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. And everything else. I studied him for a moment. He looked terrible, thinner, tired, and weirdly nervous. Not the cocky jerk who'd been tormenting me for months. 5 minutes, I said, closing the door to undo the chain. And I'm recording this conversation on my phone, I added as I let him in. Tyler nodded and followed me to the living room but didn't sit down. He just stood there awkwardly, fidgeting with the edge of his cast. So? I prompted after an uncomfortable silence. I wanted to tell you I won't be bothering you anymore. I got a job. Well, 2 jobs actually. Morning shift at a warehouse and evening shifts at a gas station. That was unexpected. Okay, good for you. And I'm paying back Mom for all the money she's loaned me over the years, starting with the car insurance I let lapse. I raised an eyebrow. What brought this on? He shrugged. The accident, I guess. And he hesitated. I had to sleep in my car for a few nights after the hospital. Had some time to think. Wait, you've been living in your car? Why? Tom changed the locks. Tyler's voice was flat. Said I couldn't come back until I got my act together and stopped harassing his stepdaughter. I was genuinely shocked. Tom had actually stood up for me? After all these years? Anyway, Tyler continued. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For real this time. The stuff I did was messed up. You didn't deserve it. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was suspicious this was just another manipulation tactic, but he seemed sincere. Where are you staying now? I asked. Got a room in a house with some other guys. It's not great, but it's a place to sleep that isn't a Honda Civic. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. Do you need money? He shook his head quickly. That's not why I came. He reached into his pocket with his good hand and pulled out an envelope. I wanted to give you this. I took it cautiously and looked inside. It was cash. Not a lot, maybe a few $100s. What's this for? It's the start of paying you back. For the hospital bill and the check you gave me at Thanksgiving. I blew through that money like an idiot. I stared at him, trying to figure out if this was for real. Tyler, I know you don't need it, but I need to pay it back. He looked at me directly for the first time. I'm trying to fix things, not just with you, but with everything. I set the envelope on the coffee table. Keep it. Use it to get on your feet. But if you really want to pay me back, just stay on whatever path you're on right now. That would mean more than the money. Tyler looked like he might argue, but then just nodded. Okay. As he turned to leave, I found myself asking, do you want to grab coffee sometime? Not today, but maybe next week? The surprise on his face was almost comical. Yeah, that would be, yeah. After he left, I sat on my couch feeling weirdly emotional. I wasn't naive enough to think one conversation had magically fixed years of dysfunction, but it felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for something better. I called Barbara to update her on the Tyler situation. So he just showed up and apologized? Just like that? She sounded skeptical. I know, it's weird, but he seemed different. Like, genuinely humbled. People don't change overnight, Alex. It wasn't overnight. It's been almost a month since the hospital. And apparently he's been homeless for part of that time. Barbara sighed. Just be careful, okay? Keep your guard up a little. She was right, of course. One apology didn't erase everything that had happened, but I couldn't help feeling cautiously optimistic. The next week, I met Tyler at a coffee shop halfway between my place and his new room. He was already there when I arrived, nervously shredding a napkin at a corner table. We made awkward small talk about the weather and his new jobs. He asked about my work, and I gave him the sanitized version, still not ready to share too much. So, I finally said after we'd exhausted all safe topics, "How are Mom and Tom?" Tyler grimaced. "Mom's upset that I moved out. Keeps trying to convince me to come back home. Tom's actually been weirdly supportive of me finding my own place." "Really? That doesn't sound like the Tom I remember." "Yeah, well," Tyler hesitated. "After your visit, there was a huge fight. Like, bigger than I've ever seen. Mom was defending me. Tom was saying I needed consequences. It got pretty ugly. I felt a pang of guilt. I didn't mean to cause problems. You didn't. This was a long time coming. Tom's actually been getting therapy for the past couple years. Something about managing his anger better." Tyler laughed humorlessly. "Would have been nice if he'd done that when we were kids, right?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Tom? In therapy?" "Yeah. His doctor told him he had to get help or he was headed for a heart attack. Turns out being an angry jerk all the time isn't great for your health." We both sat with that information for a moment. "Anyway," Tyler continued, "I think seeing all the evidence of what I'd been doing to you was a wake-up call for both of them. And for me, honestly." The conversation shifted then to childhood memories. Some good, mostly bad. It was the only time we'd ever really talked about what it was like growing up in that house. I realized we'd both been damaged by our parents in different ways. "You know what's messed up?" Tyler said, as we were getting ready to leave. "I was so jealous of you for getting out, but I never tried to leave myself. It's not easy to leave when everyone's telling you that you can't make it on your own." He nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, but I'm figuring that out now, I guess." We agreed to meet again the following week. As I drove home, I felt like I was getting to know my stepbrother for the first time. Over the next few months, Tyler and I developed a cautious friendship. We'd meet for coffee every couple of weeks, sometimes just talking, other times sitting in comfortable silence. He was consistently working both jobs, had opened a bank account, and was slowly building a life for himself. I kept waiting for him to slip up or reveal that this was all an elaborate con, but it never happened. He seemed genuinely committed to changing his life. 4 months after his unexpected visit to my condo, Tyler texted asking if we could meet at our usual coffee spot. When I arrived, he was beaming. "I got promoted at the warehouse," he announced as soon as I sat down. "Shift supervisor, better pay, regular hours." "That's awesome, Tyler. Congratulations. And I'm quitting the gas station job, going to use those evening hours to get my GED instead." I was genuinely impressed. "Wow, you're really doing this, aren't you?" He nodded, looking both proud and embarrassed. "Yeah, turns out I don't actually suck at everything." "Who knew?" "I knew," I said without thinking. "That's why I offered you that bank job back at Thanksgiving." His face fell a little. "Yeah, about that. I'm sorry I was such a jerk. That would have been a good opportunity." "Well, maybe when you get your GED we can talk about it again. My bank is always hiring." Tyler looked up, surprised. "You'd still help me get a job? After everything?" People deserve second chances when they're genuinely trying to change, and you clearly are. We spent the rest of our coffee meetup talking about GED requirements and what kind of positions might be available at my bank down the road. It felt weird, but good to be planning a future that included Tyler in a positive way. That night, my phone buzzed. It was a call from my mom. We'd been talking more frequently since Tyler's accident, though our conversations were usually brief and superficial. "Alexandra," she sounded different, more subdued than usual. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For whatever you said to Tyler. He's doing so well now. Tom and I are really proud of him." I felt a strange mix of emotions. "I didn't do anything, Mom. Tyler made these changes himself, but you gave him a chance when you had every reason not to. And I know I didn't always do right by you when you were growing up." I gripped the phone tighter, unprepared for this conversation. "Mom, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. I've been talking to someone too, a therapist." She laughed nervously. "Seems like everyone in this family is in therapy now except you." "Who says I'm not?" I replied, though I wasn't. "Fair enough. Anyway, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for a lot of things, and I'm grateful that you're giving me, another chance too." I didn't know what to say, so I just said, "Thanks, Mom." After we hung up, I sat on my balcony looking at the stars, thinking about how much had changed in less than a year. From the disaster of Thanksgiving to whatever this new family dynamic was evolving into. 6 months later, Tyler passed his GED with flying colors. I took him out to dinner to celebrate, and he shocked me by bringing my mom and Tom along. Even more shocking was how pleasant the evening turned out to be. Tom was quieter, less domineering than I remembered. My mom seemed more present, actually listening when people spoke instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. At the end of the night, Tyler pulled me aside. "I have something for you," he said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a check for $15,000, the exact amount I'd given him at Thanksgiving. Tyler, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. I've been saving up. The promotion helped, and I've been living super cheap. He grinned. Plus, I got that entry-level position at your bank's downtown branch. Thanks for putting in a good word. You earned that job on your own merits, I told him honestly. Your interview scores were excellent. Still, I wouldn't be here without your help. He gestured to the check. And that's just the beginning. I'm going to pay back every cent you spent on my hospital bills too. I tried to argue, but Tyler was adamant. This isn't just about money. It's about responsibility. It's about being the kind of person who honors his debts. Looking at his determined face, I realized he needed this more than I needed the money. So I accepted the check with a simple, thank you. Later that week, I was having lunch with Barbara when she asked how things were going with my family. Surprisingly good, I told her. It's like I've got this whole new family I never expected to have. And you're sure Tyler's changed for real? Not just putting on an act? I considered the question seriously. I think so. It's been almost a year with no red flags. He's working hard, saving money, even talking about community college classes next year. Barbara nodded. Well, people can change when they hit rock bottom. Sounds like that accident was his wake-up call. That, and getting locked out by Tom, I added. Sometimes the best thing for someone is having to face consequences. So what happens now? Barbara asked. I don't know. We just keep building, I guess. One coffee meetup at a time. That evening, I got a text from Tyler. Downtown branch manager wants me to train for the personal banking team. This is all because of you. I texted back. No, it's because of you. I'm just glad you're doing well. His response came quickly. Family dinner at Mom's this Sunday? I'll protect you from Tom's new health food kick. Apparently kale is his personality now. I laughed out loud, then typed, sure, I'll bring dessert. As I set my phone down, I realized something important. The twisted family dynamic that had defined my childhood was gone. We weren't perfect, not even close, but we were all trying in our own ways, and maybe that was enough. Tyler and I would never have the typical sibling relationship. We had too much history, too many scars for that, but we had something that worked for us, a cautious friendship built on mutual respect and genuine effort. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a brother, not just a stepbrother who made my life miserable. Sometimes the family you build isn't the one you were born into, or even the one you grew up with. Sometimes it's the one you forge through hard conversations, second chances, and the choice to see people for who they're trying to become, not just who they've been.